Hey guys, welcome to TFcon. We have not done this in a while, huh?
No, it's been a while.
We're a little light on the reviewers because we're actually just wrapped up for the show. But we didn't want to leave the con until we kind of did a first look at some of the cool goodies. We want to take a look at, first off, the Flames Toys Optimus Prime.
Yep.
Kurai? I always get messed up on what it's called.
I think it's Kuro Kai.
Yeah, something like that.
With Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
We'll flash the B-roll with the name. I actually know this line pretty well, despite not knowing the name. And it's pretty good, awesome. They were showing it off at. Were they showing it off at the booth?
Yes. Yeah. So Flame Toys has been more active in the community. Transformers for the last couple of years, partnering with Bluefin as well. And they've always kind of supported the reviewer roundtable early on with their drift. So it's cool that they're coming back again with their Optimus, which was one of their most highly anticipated characters, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the first time we did, we looked at drift. There's actually been a few in between that have been excellent. There's been the Tarn and the Star Saber is the latest one. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I don't have those here, but either way, I think anyone that has seen the reviews or owns any of those, the Optimus so far, I mean, this is a test shot.
Yeah, T1 is the very first.
Yeah, very first one. So we're going to kind of show some of the main features, but there's a few things that probably a lot of goodies that we can't really dive into quite yet. But it does take some cues from what everyone is used to from these high-end action figures that they do have. So
Boris, since you are the most promoted of this line, you've collected all of them. I think you have even every version of Tarn that's out so far.
Just got the second.
So tell me what has really been attractive about this line that keeps bringing you back and wanting to be such a rabid collector of the Kuro line.
Well, first off, it's obviously this is something that everybody's grown to know about, even if you don't quite collect it yet, is the articulation. So one of the biggest things about when you get into a line like this is I don't think you're going to find another representation of the Transformer line with quite as much articulation by a long shot. So we've definitely taken a look at other figures before, but some of the highlights of this entire line are kind of the movement of the joints, the kind of posing that you can do aggressively with this line, and how smooth the transitions are.
Mm-hmm.
So
clever engineering, that the armor that moves and shifts in place, that in normal action figures, we would see lots of gaps or, just awkwardness, I guess. You don't get that with this figure or this line, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kind of a combination of engineering and then understanding where these poses are going to end up and what's going to be exposed. And so, when you look at the price points, it really is reflective of that because they have to actually do a lot of tooling and molding to create all these extra pieces that cover, slide, and move around to get these poses happening. So, for example, on this Optimus, one of the highlights that we were shown, just a simple thing about allowing movement and it's obviously not going to be so loose in the final version, but allowing some movement. They always have panels that can kind of flip up, slide in the back here as well. Maybe we can show that with some B-roll. But everything kind of moves around to allow kind of your maximum amount of movement.
Mm-hmm. And they showed some interesting stuff with the butterfly joints too, right?
Yeah, I was going to say.
We've come to kind of expect butterfly joints from these figures, but these go even a step further, right? Adding some level of detail that we'll try to show in some extra B-roll, that this back panel here actually will move out of the way, not just and kind of fill in the gap, spring load to fill in the gap, but also when you push it back, you can see that it actually allows for additional movement backwards. And instead of filling the gap, it creates more space.
So they have actual panels that slide to allow you to do these things, and I think that's where it's, like Henry suggested, having it. I've seen a lot of figures now that do a really good job of hiding things when the butterfly shoulders come out going forward, but going backwards is another level. Because again, you're exposing a lot of gaps, but you're allowing this kind of more grand, gesturing posing. You're not seeing a lot of the exposed joints that's letting it do that.
Yeah, Eric. So representing Madhouse, and ages 3 and up, what are your thoughts on this figure, having worked with Flames Toys before in the past, and your experience with the toys and the customers that come into the shops?
Well, I think it was here that we did the drift the very first time, right? So, and back then, I remember the drift being so Gundam-like, you know what I mean? And it still seems to follow the same vein. You still have a lot of edgy angles and stuff like that, as opposed to more soft and curved, which I like.
Yeah, and especially the crotch plate area.
Exactly, right? So, and the legs, the heavy legs, are a really nice touch, I find.
And this is based off of what design?
I think this is based off their own, kind of design. I think it was
It's IDW inspired, but based on what they were saying, they took some liberties.
Yeah.
And I like that they've done that. They've kept a lot of the styling cues consistent, although breaking away from the IDW inspiration. It's not like they just took liberties. They also looked at the rest of their line. The aesthetic matches much closer to with the latest Star Saber, for example. They all have this kind of aesthetic too. And then it's the same thing. You get down into the feet and ankles. One of the things I loved about the drift was the stance that it could have, as well as just how I kind of liked the bulkier feet. Although stylized, it kind of had a lot of heft to it, so it kind of kept its stance still. Gave it still a lot of presence.
It's still very dynamic.
And I think it kind of makes sense, right? Like if you were to have a robot, like in real life, you would need to have that mass in the lower part of the legs to really keep it stable, just the physics of it. So I think they showed off some other interesting features, like the crotch plate actually will slide out of the way of when you're articulating the waist. So it actually has a spring-loaded joint that will move in and out of the way.
Even moves in the back here, the back plate,
right?
That you can't really see here, but as you turn the body around, this back plate will also move to compensate for the movement.
Yeah,
we'll try to show it on the B-roll because it's actually quite nice as it gets up in the upper torso and it bends.
Yeah, all these kind of like hip thrusts that we kind of expect from anime and so forth. You get that inner. Again, those inner details, those small details that you normally might not see, they have thought of that, right? So that's really interesting.
Well, yeah, because they have a kind of a sliding hinge on top that it almost teeters on once you hit the top of the motion. It can teeter forward and it can go backwards really smoothly because of the way that they've engineered it. And still, as you can see, there's not much that's showing. They've really taken the time to hide a lot of these mechanics and make it
crunch, like a really, really good ab crunch.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually a real ab crunch.
Yeah.
It's not just like bending. And there's several points where the hinge kind of moves.
Yeah, that, getting that amount of knee bend and not knowing how that works, like all these things collapsing inside and folding inside and then springing back out to fill those gaps is just really, really clever.
Yeah, and that's where I really like it. They know how to use die-cast in all the right places. Like I love the die-cast in the knees for that because they create a really smooth friction joint for doing something like that. And you don't need ratcheting because of it. And it's still, like, I played with my drift a lot, and that joint is still just as smooth as ever. It's not loose, and you can always rely on it to give you the posing that you want.
Eric, do you want to talk about some of the massive amount of accessories that this comes with?
Well, let's start off with the biggest one, I guess.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be an exclusive to their shop, to their eWeb shop, I think. Also to any of their shows that Flame Toys will be doing. So unfortunately, I don't think North America will see this, I guess, in retail.
Unless you visit them at TFcon.
Yeah, unless you visit them at TFcon. They did say they would be here at TFcon. And this is slated for what, 2020?
Yeah, they said January, so
January
very soon.
2020. So it's very soon. So, maybe if TFcon in Florida.
Yeah, I think that's the newest news.
Yes, TFcon Florida. If Flame Toys is there, hopefully this will be making a presence. And you'll get to purchase this gigantic axe, which is
Almost
very large.
50% plus bigger than he is.
Yeah. It's got little boosters in the.
That's what I thought
It
was funny.
is.
If
You
you,
have boosters in your.
In case
axe.
you need it to fly at your enemy.
Yeah,
Well,
the extra amount of
an
power.
extra.
And it-
in case you really
It
want
even
to
needs
slice
exhaust
through
to cool
somebody.
it down.
Exactly. It's got a mind of its own. This will not be clear. If I am.
Translucent orange. I think.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a translucent orange, so it looks like it's on fire and about to melt something down when
Yeah.
it cuts through.
Pretty,
Yeah,
pretty
obviously.
common Optimus, Energon X.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, all of this is not even the right colors.
Yeah.
It's gonna be.
Although it looks
Well painted.
great in gray. A lot of
Yes.
times I think like the test shots look better in gray than they do in the real colors.
With-
Because you can see the
with
details.
fleshy human head.
Yeah.
Human hands color is a little bit odd, but yeah.
So what about some of the other weaponry that everyone will be getting?
Double axes.
I know they're into the doubles, right? So he also has double swords that
Yeah.
apparently can store, very similar to Drift. You said.
Yeah,
These
it
big
just
that come up?
it just pegs onto the side here. Don't forget.
I like how the swords you
You
actually
can
have a
actually
little
see that
clip.
side, Eric. So help me out here.
There's a little clip here on the swords so that you can pop it in and pop it out, and then when you're popping it out to put it in, it just plugs into the, into the hips here.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
right now it's just a little bit loose, but just because it's still only a test shot.
The double axes also have boosters, thrusters on the back, because again,
Flying
need that.
axes are cool.
kind of iconic ion blaster that Optimus has, but then it has some extra features like extending the front, extending the back, and it even has an extra kind of rifle handle in the front, which always reminds me of how he held the blaster in the movie, in the 85 movie. He kind of always had it grabbed to the side, so you can kind of recreate that scene. It was kind of funny. One of the representatives actually said, "Oh, even I didn't know about that." So you're getting some information that's hot off the presses.
Yeah, and I believe there's storage for him in the back. It's just
There's a couple of clips here.
it's just not the right fitting yet.
What's
yeah,
the clip
so-
for the?
Or we can't figure it out yet. So
Yeah, it seemed like they weren't quite sure either.
yeah. So once that tooling's done, we'll give you an update with that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because there's no real actual clip or connector yet on the back, but that's where it's going to end up. And yeah, a drift style.
I didn't even know they had that sword.
The transforming one, right? It's very similar with the transforming action into, I guess, this kind of almost like sword in the stone style with the Autobot logo. What else does he have? He has a whole bunch of hands. So how many sets of hands I think they said total?
7 or
7 sets of hands,
not including the ones that he's.
including the ones I think.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
including the ones that he has. So a plethora of options in terms of hand styles, pointing, gripping.
Letting you know where to go or where to shove it.
He has a couple that are like grippy hands, but also ones that are very obviously specific for the blaster itself, as you can see.
The blaster hands are kind of nice.
And they're just ball jointed, right? So you just pop them off and pop them back on.
yeah,
very
super
simple.
easy.
And then last but not least, I think we have an additional set of faces.
Mhm.
So can you talk about the faces for us?
I didn't even get a chance to look at the faces. Yes, he's got that broken mask face. That's kind of cool. So you can use that as the battle damaged prime, and then looks like what Leo Orion.
Yeah, the bear
Axe?
face kind of.
Bear face prime.
I don't like my Optimus with the bear face.
You know, I've always liked the
Lips.
iconic.
Yeah, I mean this definitely makes him look younger. It's interesting. It's
A
weird.
younger robot.
A younger robot. I don't know.
Okay.
But it's pretty easy. It's like drift. You just
You don't
break-
do that.
you break the sword first, then you take the mask off. You just pop it off from the front.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna.
you remove the crest.
Yeah, exactly. So drift was much the same way. You kind of remove the whole crest part, then the face. And same thing, the eyes light up and everything as well. Once you've removed it, you can see that the LEDs are there, and all of these faceplates will light up with the LED.
Speaking of LEDs, just like the other figures, this does feature several sets of LEDs. I think they have 2 red ones in each of the kneecaps, right? That you just pull off, and then there's a switch and batteries that are installed in each of those.
That's right. They showed me how to do it, but.
All right, break it. Don't break it.
It comes off like the drift kneecaps were very similar too. They all came off, and then there's a separate switch. I mean, to get this amount of lighting in without getting wiring everywhere.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you do have to have removable pieces. I know that some people had a bit of an issue that you have to remove everything and turn on the switches for every single thing. But honestly, if you didn't do that, you would have wiring going through it, and that is actually kind of a mess.
Yeah.
You're trying to do this kind of stuff.
And then they have a couple switches for the chest and the eyes, right?
I
So
think he had 3.
yeah, so the chest itself can open up upwards, which is kind of unique for an Optimus. You usually expect the chest to open outwards, but then there's all these kind of I don't know what energon details with some cracks, and so they were saying that that lights up blue, and then
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, there's a picture on the site, and
it will splice that in.
yeah, but if you lift up the symbol here, it's not quite staying up right now. But on the site, you'll see the path of the lights actually leads to the middle of the matrix underneath here, and that's kind of cool because you'll see a matrix under there. And then when the middle of the chest comes back down, it lights up the Autobot symbol,
Nice. Nice.
which is a really nice touch.
Yeah, and they're saying there are separate switches for the chest cracks, for the lack of a better word, or the energon streams, and then another switch that controls both the matrix gem and the eyes, right?
Yep. That's
Okay.
right. So you could like turn on the cracks first, then turn on.
Yeah.
The...
And the only thing that I think that we haven't covered is that they said that they're going to have a upgrade set, right, Eric?
Yes, they did. So for those of you who are excited and who like Jetfire, we're going to have some Jetfire parts. Unfortunately, that does not mean they're going to have a Jetfire, but I'm not sure how they're going to add the Jetfire parts.
Yeah.
They didn't say which Jetfire, because that would be kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, I just kind of assumed to be like movie inspired, but I guess since it's IDW, like I don't know
I'm
how they're
not
gonna
sure which
tackle
Jetfire
that.
parts.
Yeah, I don't know. They were saying they announced the Jetfire on.
Yeah, on through their social media, but we haven't seen any parts of it.
Maybe we'll find some. And add it
What
to the
what
B-roll.
color was it?
I don't know. I haven't. That was the first I've ever heard of it.
I would assume it would be white.
Really,
Right.
I would assume it would be black.
If it's parts for the Prime, maybe black. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So we'll do a little bit more research and find out.
Yeah.
But that was some really interesting news. But I think that's it for this figure. I think with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next figure in our reviewer roundtable.
Okay, so what do we got next?
We got the
Henry.
newest updates from the Ocular Max line. This is from their Incursus or their Bruticus line. So they showed a lot. So this is the newest version that shows the toon chest, the cartoon accurate chest or anime chest with kind of like the blast off parts with purple, brown, and black. A lot of people requested this. It also has the updated helmet, which is the cartoon helmet with the red visor. So this is going to be not only just these remolded parts, but it's also going to include updated colors that are quote-unquote more anime accurate. So the blue is a little bit different, the green's a little bit different. So it's not just a simple like recolor. This chest piece is all remolded, and the colors are going to be different. This is going to be a separate release. They've announced that before, that it's going to be a separate Onslaught figure than the toy version. So you're going to have to choose whether you want the toy version or the Toon version for your collection. So for me, I'm going Toon. What about you, Boris?
I actually have an affinity for the toy.
Oh, boo. Okay.
I'm sorry, I like the
All
toy.
right, enough from you. Eric.
I don't like Bruticus, but
Oh.
actually no, he's pretty cool. But I don't know actually. I'd have to. I didn't realize that there was going to be two versions. To be honest.
You thought it was going to just be an optional swapping
Yeah,
of parts?
I thought it was
or-
just swappable parts, right? So, I mean, it's a little bit of research has to be done.
Okay.
I
So
think because people did that with the unique toys, that's it just flips over or whatever.
Or that the extra
Oh.
add-on head and
Yeah,
stuff.
I didn't know that.
for the tune, yeah. But I mean,
But these
it's-
guys are accomplishing way more though, because it's still all
It's-
in one.
it's tough because, like you said, it's not just as simple. You need the coloring to change as well, and you
Mhm.
can't have both.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but then you're going to be kind of mediocre at both. Right?
Yeah. Like the Zeta Toys one, they just came out with their Bruticon, like I think
Tune
Toon
colors.
Toon
version,
color.
but it's still the same molded toy looking parts, just colored Toon. Which
That's correct.
yeah, and I think that's just if you're gonna do it like that, then you're just kind of half-assing it. So
It's
I'd rather-
oversimplifying the difference. I
Yeah,
think.
exactly.
Um,
Speaking of
the limbs stay the same, right? There's not like a second choice of limbs.
no,
They stay the
Okay.
yeah.
Good. Yeah, I think the viewer would like to know
But
that.
they did show off that you're going to actually have options for having silver toy accurate boots, which had the added benefit of giving the foot separation,
Mhm.
and it just attaches onto the existing feet, their brawl and their swindle. But it also has the added bonus of increasing the height, which is one of the sticking points for a lot of folks out there who are like collecting the toy worlds or the Zetas or the fans toys, and they're wanting that 20+ incher, while Oculus Max is always, I think, is around like 17 or 18 inches. So it gives you a little bit more height to satisfy maybe some of those folks that are on the fence just because of that. They also showed off the gun. An additional gun in addition to Onslaught's standard gun. And what else did they show? Oh, and when the foot transforms, the 2 feet can actually store in Onslaught's alt mode and can be used in a variety of ways, including one which would allow it to be a ramp on the backside of the trailer. So. I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's-
pretty good. I like that.
So I think it's nice that they shared these options for folks who like both the cartoon and the toy, getting a little bit more height, get a little more playability. I don't think they've announced how this is going to come out though. Is this going to be included if you get the toy version of Onslaught, or is it going to be an extra add-on set that you buy to add on to your toy or toon version? So stay tuned for details on that, but it was one of the reveals that they had this weekend.
That's right. And speaking of which, what we got over here? This is
Yeah, who's your buddy over there, Eric?
yeah.
Dave the robot.
Dave the robot.
Dave the robot says hi. But no, this is obviously. I don't know his.
I don't know his
Latin name?
yeah, but Blast Off.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
just call him
Blast
Blast
Off.
Off.
Let's call him not Blast Off. Not Blast Off here. Yeah, he looks. I guess he looks pretty toony.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I'm not
I'm-
sure.
I
I
mean-
mean, this is the first time I've looked at it. Like literally looked at it right now.
Same.
So
I mean, I do like the simplicity of it. It definitely is nice. But something about his legs are a little bell-bottomed.
Yeah, his legs do definitely have a lot of heft to them. They're not as clean as I think I would have liked because of the fact that, like, kind of with their impetus, their whirlwind. No, vortex? Vortex. Sorry, getting these third-party names mixed up. You still get a little bit of the hand action in here, but again, that's part of the engineering magic that they do. So I think there had to be some sacrifices, but overall, I'm pretty happy with how he looks. And having transformed him a couple of times without instructions, without any kind of guidance, it's pretty intuitive how everything kind of works together into all three modes. So I've always been pretty happy with the engineering so far, but to be able to see this guy was another pleasure. I was really hoping that we would get to see their brawl, though, their final figure, but I guess they didn't make it in time.
Right.
Yeah. So sorry, we'll have to use Swindle again.
Yeah. We had two-legged Fraudos. So.
You have the option of buying 2 Swindos, by the way, to to make it ridiculous.
until as a holdover until their brawl comes out. But I think that's really it for these guys. We just wanted to share a quick update on that line that hopefully will satisfy a lot of fans out there, both toy and tune alike.
That's right. Looks great.
All right, let's move on to the next figure. All right, so we're back with our third figure or fourth figure, actually, technically. We are with the newest reveal, which is a surprise reveal for MMC's reformatted line Chrome Dome. And if you're a More Than Meets the Eye fan, you probably did a little bit of a squee to see this guy because he plays a major role and is a fan favorite in the series. So, Boris, tell me a little bit about this guy.
At first when I saw him, I think he looks cool. I just thought he was a little lanky. Then I realized, oh wait, actually he's
pretty spot on.
Yeah,
I thought the same too. I was like, oh man, when I first saw the design and More Than Meets the Eye, I was like, it's not what I pictured. But then it's kind of nice to have a little bit more diversity in the designs, and Alex's design for Chrome Dome, I think, is a little bit more fitting for the really brainy kind of Chrome Dome character.
Yeah, when you see him in 3D space, it does anytime you see it, it almost looks a little skinnier because you can see it from all angles.
Yeah.
But it's actually quite nice, and it lends to that design. You were saying something about the hip thrust, right? Like, yeah, they really like the hip thrust on this figure.
Yeah. Eric, are you a More Than Meets the Eye fan? Were you pretty happy about Chrome Dome coming out? Or are you pretty indifferent?
I haven't finished reading it.
What?
I'm halfway through.
Halfway through?
I'm buying just the hardcover books, and
Okay.
I'm cheap, so I'm waiting to find them. I'm halfway through. It's pretty tough. But, I mean, when I walked into the show and I saw this, I didn't see the figure. I just saw his alt mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, who did Blade Runner here, right? So I didn't even notice. And then I looked a little bit closer, and then I was like, oh, wow, it's Chrome Dome. I'm liking it. I'm digging it. I mean, it's really, really nice.
It's so weird. When I looked at his alt mode, I thought of kind of like the Tumbler, the Batman Tumbler, because of the wheels that come out the front, kind of like the forked front kind of thing. So I'd be happy if they had like a Tumbler colored one with Rewind as Batman or something like that. Speaking of Rewind, did you want to talk a little bit about the accessories we have here? This one in the middle?
Yeah, it's kind of nice. They're gonna have a 2-pack, right?
Yeah, that's what that's the reveal.
Yeah,
2-pack.
Yeah, surprise!
When you think of More Than Meets the Eye Chrome Dome, you can't not think of his lifelong spark buddy Rewind. So
yeah, so it's pretty funny because I think they showed this off, right?
Yeah, they did.
And at first we even thought like,
what is this?
It's like a grenade. Is he holding a grenade? But
little remote control.
A detonator. It kind of looks like a detonator with a little ball top antenna.
Yeah, but then we realized that's not an antenna. It's a ball joint, which means it is the hand of Rewind. So they're holding hands. So it's a cool little gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, with every 2-pack, I'm sure people are going to complain and say, oh, I only want Rewind or I only want Chrome Dome, but I don't think any More Than Meets the Eye fan will want one without the other. I think that's just how it's going to be.
And besides, who will the hand go to?
I know, exactly. Jeez. And then we have another one. I don't really get this reference. Do you get it, Boris? She has like a little comms antenna and like a microphone.
Yeah, it's Bluetooth. It's in case he has to talk to Siri or hey Alexa, could you call Rewind? Oh man, that was such a nerdy joke.
Yeah. I honestly don't remember, but I'm sure somebody in the comment section will be very quick to correct us on what this is a reference
It's actually a reference to one of the panels in the comic. Basically, they're just gadgets that come out of its head or his head, so it referenced. They actually show it in the panel.
Oh, okay.
So as far as I know,
Okay.
because I was informed about that, I do not remember.
And there are just some kind of cool details. I mean, Eric was like fiddling with the wheels on the
Yeah.
shoulders, right?
Spinning wheels, guys. Spinning wheels. I mean, I have to admit there were some things from MMC that I was very disappointed with, like no rolling wheels, especially on the tank, guys.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
so there's no treads. I can understand,
Yeah,
but add a little bit of wheels underneath to mimic it.
yeah.
But now you got rolling wheels, so I'm quite happy with it.
And they kind of take the same kind of design cue that they had with Nickel, their knee or whatever you want to pronounce, with the wheels that have the parts that come out as the heel and they tab in to place so that you actually get a solid foot without the spinning wheel. But I guess you could theoretically untab it and have him kind of roller skate around with like what are those shoes that kids have these days with the wheelies on the back. But kind of a cool design cue. But I'm actually, what I've impressed me the most is when actually getting to feel this before filming is that for a test shot, he feels very, very solid. Like there's no looseness in the joints. He's actually very tight. The finish and feels really good. So I almost want to just take this home and put it on my shelf. And when they ask me, hey, what happened to that test shot? I'll be like, I don't know, Boris took it.
It's a good design. Like I think for a test shot, it already speaks towards how well designed it is.
It's very clean.
Mm-hmm.
Very clean, very simple.
I can't wait for Rewind.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe at the next con, we'll get an update with him.
Yeah, because I think they forgot to tool him or something.
I wouldn't put it past MMC.
Yeah, you never know.
All right. Well, then let's move on to our fifth and final review or preview for this review roundtable. All right, Boris, lead us in.
Yeah. So the last one we're looking at here, we have seen some reviews online, but oh man, in person, we really gotta talk about this. This situation here is amazing. A lot of you guys have probably played with Bumblebee, and if you haven't, Bumblebee was the first in this deluxe line, and currently Blitzwing is shipping. It's much larger as well. As it still has all the articulation, really highly detailed, and it's all from the Bumblebee movie, of course. And 3.0 now?
Yeah,
3.8. They did a great job starting this line off, and it has kind of all the articulation and the detail that you would expect from kind of high-end toys. We talked about flame toys.
Yeah.
Earlier, Gundam metal builds, if anyone's ever played with those, although some of those are kind of on another level when you talk about the engineering, but this comes really close, and for the price point, this is why I'm like, so like thrown back by it. I don't even know where to start, Henry. Like,
just start with just how amazing it looks with the details.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I saw the Bumblebee one, and I mean, the Bumblebee design is great, but there's something about like the 2 minutes that you see of Optimus in that whole movie that is just, it's very G1 while being a little bit different, and it instantly, I think, becomes like a classic. And while I wasn't going to collect any of the stuff from the 3A because I'm a very big Transformers Need to Transform, after playing with this guy, he is just, I gotta get him. I can't not get him. From the paintwork to just the aesthetics that they nailed down to a T, all the details, and then the articulation. It's unreal that what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. So, just to start off with, like what you said, some of the aesthetics. So, follow some of the weathering. Bumblebee was really nicely weathered, but when you look at Optimus, and I'm not sure about Blitzwing yet, I haven't actually had a chance to play with it. It is shipping currently to most retailers, so we'll get it soon. But the wash that they throw on it to give it that weathering look, they actually spent the details to kind of get all the lines to just pop and really show off all the gritty details. And it's hard to tell where the metal and the plastic kind of starts and ends.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when you hold it though, because it's got so much weight to it, like the actual internal structure, and this is where you start realizing that it's really well built. All of the joints, a lot of the frame inside is all metal. But that's what fools you, because you're like, this is really heavy, and almost everyone that picked it up at the show was like, is this all metal? And it's very, very deceiving. It's actually not. It's just the aesthetic. And then I'll let you talk about some of the articulation, because that's kind of the next thing that's going to end up getting you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you think when you see something of this detail and quality and just aesthetics, you're like, it's going to be a bear to like move around and to pose. But this guy is rock solid. He comes with this nice stand, just like Bumblebee, but you really don't need it. This guy is just so solid, a lot of heft in the bottom. But the thing that impressed me the most was just the amount of range he has in his waist. The fact that he can bend so far, like just his waist, not including any of his hip articulation. And as we said with flame toys, they have all this hidden detail that you would normally see. If you did like a figure arts figure like this, you'd see gaps all along these. But
absolutely.
Even here, it's like hard to see where one piece starts and one piece ends. Like you were saying before, there's like no gapping going on. Just the sturdiness, because as a masterpiece collector, I've always kind of associated those ratchets with quality, but this takes it to another level. Like friction joints, you were like, I don't want friction joints, I want ratchets to feel that solidness. I don't know what they're doing here, maybe you know, Boris, but this, whatever they're doing, it almost feels like it kind of locks into place with some, almost a kind of like a rubbery, solid feel that allows you to move stuff while giving you enough friction.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how the dynamics inside this guy works, because I've never actually looked at it. But a lot of times, at least with the Bumblebee, what I do know is there is actually a ball joint inside.
Oh, okay.
So what it does is, like, the ball joint, there's several ball joints, but they're surrounded by a lot of the plastic molding all over the side, as
Like a
well
gasket,
as
like a socket?
yeah, as well as the metal is kind of around it too, so it gives it that extra support when you're actually tilting it to the side, and then it allows for, I guess, the way that it's designed. It has the ball joint in the middle, and your molding goes over the sides. It actually allows for a lot of this movement without exposing anything inside. So in this model, unlike how the Flame Toys Optimus works, you don't have as smooth of a hinge necessarily, movement, but the ball joint does all the work on this, and it's kind of amazing that you can get that happening. But the nice thing about that, as well as the Bumblebee, is you get this nice range of motion, organic motion, when you're at the top. Because look, you can actually go side to side.
Yeah, it's also kind of interesting to say, use the word organic when we're talking about robots,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. But that's kind of how they accomplish, I believe, how they accomplish it in the Prime as well, if it's anything like the Bumblebee. But as you get into the legs, it is definitely reminiscent of some of the Flame Toys mechanics that you were looking at. They definitely don't have quite as many parts that are moving along, but there's quite a bit that slides. So, I mean, maybe we can show it in some of the B-roll, but you can tell a lot of it is accomplished by these really nice die-cast parts that allow very smooth friction joints, and there's a lot of parts that are actually moving to slide and reveal. So you can see that the knee, is it has kind of like this mechanism that as you kind of bend it, the mechanism is a little bit looser, so that it allows for the exposing of more detail in the panels without actually exposing the joint. And then they kind of did a clever cheat here. This is actually where the joint is, but they put like kind of a piston
Mm-hmm.
design in there.
Yeah.
I know a lot of like higher end like Gundam builds and whatnot. Sometimes they'll actually make a movement in there as well,
Yeah.
which is bonus points. But I mean, you can't really tell. It's really nicely. I think it's pretty clever that they worked around that. Same thing here, Henry. You can see that's where you can notice some of the joint, but they've kind of designed it in a way where it hides it. But overall, like I don't think that takes away from this. You still can't tell that anything has been taken away from that.
So Eric, what about some of the accessories that he comes with?
Aside from the big gun,
Yeah.
well, he comes with multiple hands. I think it's three.
I think he's like
That's
seven
odd.
extra hands. Yeah.
7 extra hand. Maybe we're missing a hand.
No, I think the only thing is he has like this extra kind of like
Shocker hand.
shock.
I mean,
What?
pointing hand.
Okay,
so,
this is
Yeah, because he has that like leading kind of
Yeah.
I think he does that in one of the movie shots or whatever. I'm not sure
yeah.
if it's from
It's like
the
kind of-
actual motion, but I feel like I've seen it either on the posters or
Yeah.
marketing material. Yeah.
I think I would have liked it to have been articulated, but I'm kind of glad it's not because
That's
I think-
that's one of those things you get the benefit of the look, but you don't have to worry about like the breakages and the
Exactly.
fine details and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's one of those things where it's a design trade off, and they're a little bit softer, right? Yeah.
it almost feels like it's metal too, right? Because maybe it's just cold.
And
but
the finish is just really highly
yeah,
glossy.
it's very nice. It even looks like there's a pin in it, which is just paint. But going back to the painting schemes, very highly detailed paint. It's painted very well. I mean, look at the mud on the insides of the door and stuff like that. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, just the amount of details, like you can see like this kind of gear detail in here. Looks very mechanical, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it's been one of the big trademarks of 3A, and you got the rubber. You probably
Yeah.
noticed the rubber wheels and the dirt on the rubber wheels. Even though it's whatever branded 3.0 now, a lot of the 3A, like even the movie primes from previous, they've shown this kind of weathering detail where they really kind of spare no technique in trying to get the right look.
Yeah, I'm not usually a fan of weathering, but like with the siege line, but with this they've done it right, and it really just makes it look that much more real. Just because again the high amount of detail. The one
Burnt
thing,
on smoke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the smokestacks are
yeah,
really
the
nice.
soot that's like that. But I think the last thing I'll talk about is just the amount of like care that they went into this. I can't imagine how long it took just to try to get this so perfected and like it stepped off the screen. I can't wait to finally get this now that I've seen it in person, and hopefully I can actually use this as a club to knock these two out before I can run out of here and end this review around
Take
table.
it. Yeah. It acts as the weapon and the getaway reward.
His eyes do light up, from what I understand, right?
Yeah, so like
yeah.
B, he has the he doesn't have quite as much lighting. He has
He's got beady eyes.
well, like B just has the light up eyes. So that is one thing that when we looked at the flame toys, you'd expect all this lighting. They don't focus on that as much, but it's simple, but it looks nice, and I like how they hide it. You don't have to pop off anything. You basically just press the
crest?
the crest. And B was the same thing. B had the Autobot symbol there.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think it's a switch, but you just press it, and it's basically just a on and off button. Yeah, so it's kind of inside. I mean, this one's interesting because it's kind of recessed, so I wonder if you have to just like...
No accidental presses or anything like that?
Yeah, no accident. But B's was the Autobot symbol was extruded, so you would be able to hit it really easily. This one you kind of just gotta get your finger in there, but
Maybe
it's
use
not
one of
bad.
his fingers. Just
Yeah, you can poke at it, but I mean, it's
this one.
it's
That's what
wide
this
enough.
one's for. The two
the
fingers.
2 fingers to poke at his.
It's actually, you can move his arm up and turn his lights on.
Yeah, the only thing I always wish for every Optimus is to have the opening chest and a matrix, and I asked if they had that, but unfortunately not. But
That
I guess,
would have been bonus points for sure.
yeah, but I guess that wasn't part of at least the new story arc or whatever. If it's a new or
Exactly.
new lore or I don't know, they seem to be going wish-washing back and forth about whether it's part of the original series of movies or not.
But yeah, definitely it's got that IDW-ish kind of square.
Yeah. So
Franchise.
to wrap up, I want to go around and see what you guys think. What was your favorite first look that we did at TFcon DC 2019? Eric?
Well,
Yeah, I want to pick on him because he seemed to be stressing the most.
Oh man, between the two Optimuses,
Yeah.
Man, it's really hard. I like them both. The 3A was a nice surprise that we got. So it was great to be around them all weekend. And then to look at the Flame Toys one, that Gundam style model really kind of...
You're sitting on the fence. You gotta
I'm
pick one.
really on the fence
Pick
on this
one.
one.
No?
Oh man.
Which one's more for your collection?
Oh, they're both coming into the collection. Well, the 3A one right now because it's in my collection.
Okay. All right.
I think it's
Yeah, he gets to take this one home.
yes score. But yeah, no, I like it. It's a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more hands-on, so I can manipulate it a little bit more than the Flame Toys one. I'd be a little bit more afraid with
Yeah, with a much more expensive figure. too.
Yeah, it's much more expensive. So I like it. It's in a nice price range.
I like the scale too. That we didn't talk about that. But
Yeah, the scale is really nice, and with the Bumblebees, about
Yeah.
the right size. I think this probably the best thing for me this weekend at TFcon.
All right, Boris. What about you?
well, if it's about first looks, yeah, I was definitely impressed with the Flame Toys Prime, but I have kind of seen and been drooling over that for a while. So I think actually having this guy to play with, I'm always really shocked at how much I like the 3A stuff because I'm used to all the mechanics that go into the Flame Toys stuff. Obviously, I'm gonna have to have the Flame Toys because it's part of my collection, but I am gonna say he impressed me a little bit more because of the size, pure sizing, and because I just haven't had a chance to play with him yet. But in terms of just like all the stuff that we looked at, that Chrome Dome really, impressed me because
Wow. Okay.
I was very shocked. I was
I know. I thought we were going down this path, and
I was just very shocked that they would go that route. I thought, Reformatted has been going this certain direction with the DJD and all that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, Chrome Dome. I don't know what I expected them to do next, but it was not Chrome Dome.
yeah, I guess I haven't really been thinking about where they would go next too, because we've been on that DJD track with Nickel and the Pet, and with their last figure coming out, last two figures that they've already shown in the last couple of TFcons. Once those are out, there's no more DJD guys. Where would they go? And yeah, I guess they went back kind of to the earlier story arcs. And I'm wondering if they'll bring out any others besides Rewind, the earlier arcs, like what's his name? Oh, I can't remember his name. The psychologist that ends up being. Oh, I can't. What? Wrong. Yeah, that ends up. Well, I can't spoil it. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read that part.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll just tell you off camera. For me, oh man, I don't know why I asked this question because I can't even answer it myself. I think I'm gonna have to agree with Eric here and go with the 3-0 Bumblebee Prime, mainly because it totally changed my expectations. It was not on my radar. I was like, oh, it looks great, but I would never get it. Having it in hand and being able to mess with it's a type of collectible that I normally wouldn't get. Like I said, non-transforming Transformers is not my thing, but this guy has just overly impressed me. I literally went to Eddie at Toy Dojo and said, I need this now. So added to my pile of stuff, my never-ending pile of stuff. So I think he's gonna be it. I did like everything that we saw from Flames Toys. I think once we get closer to a finished product, maybe when we come to March's TFcon Orlando or Florida, and we have something a little bit further along and be able to mess with it a little bit more, maybe that will start taking the lead.
I think that'll be easier to be excited if I see it in color.
Yeah, and to be able to manipulate it more like we have with this near finished product. But if I don't say Ocular Max and MMC, do you think they'll let me go from doing their video manuals? I hope not. Anyway, this was 2019's TFcon DC with ages 3 and up, Boris for ages 3 and up, Eric from Madhouse and ages 3 and up, and me, Pick for Lice. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you, I guess, in Florida.
Yeah,
Thanks
that's
for
right.
having us. All right.
Florida.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good one.
Have a good one.